Welcome back to High Stakes. Today, we will be discussing the following NFL matches that is happening on Sunday, October 15th, 2023. We will be providing our team, total, and prop picks for the day. Before we get started, please remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. If you want access to our premium picks, you can check out our Patreon page. You can find the link to our Patreon page in the description and comment section below. Washington Commanders versus Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder has maintained an undefeated record in both college and NFL home games, and this trend is expected to persist. The Atlanta Falcons boast a formidable defense capable of restricting Brian Robinson and the running game, exemplified by their containment of Travis Etienne Jr. to 55 yards on 20 carries in their London game. On the flip side, the Commanders' run defense has faced challenges this season, creating an opportunity for Bijan Robinson to excel and propel the Falcons to victory, covering the 2.5-point spread. My recommendation is to choose Atlanta minus 2.5 points. The under is also the way to go in this game, as both the Atlanta Falcons and Washington Commanders offenses struggle. Atlanta and Washington are also run-based offenses, which will burn out plenty of the clock, especially early on in the game. Although Washington does have a bad defense which gives up plenty of points, Atlanta doesn't have the offense, especially passing-wise, to score enough points for the over to cash. Take the under here. Next we have Minnesota Vikings versus Chicago Bears. Even with the absence of Justin Jefferson, Minnesota possesses enough offensive talent to surpass the 20-point mark. I think those favoring the Bears might be influenced by recent performance bias, given that their latest game was their most impressive of the season. However, in the preceding 4 games, they appeared to be the weakest team in the league. Despite Chicago's apparent success in the offseason, they still have a considerable distance to cover in their rebuilding process. In contrast, Minnesota had playoff aspirations at the start of the season. Despite their concerning turnover plus or minus, I anticipate the Vikings will improve their ball security as the season progresses. The Bears also carry a -4 turnover ratio, increasing the likelihood that they will lose the turnover battle in this matchup. Given Minnesota's tendency to stay close in games, often losing by just 1 score, I expect their ability to limit turnovers to be a decisive factor. They are likely to do just enough to secure the victory and cover the points. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense should be able to take care of the Bears' porous passing defense. In addition, I trust Justin Fields to be motivated after his performance on Thursday to come out with another solid performance and prove the haters wrong. Chicago has the extra rest and the home crowd behind them, so I expect their offense to show up against an average Vikings defense as well. With Herbert's injury, both teams will be more likely to throw the ball, and that results in more points scored overall. Chicago has averaged 34 points per game in their last 2 contests, and the Vikings have scored no less than 20 points since week 2 of the season thus far. I have confidence they will put up 24 points at the very least, while Chicago will do enough to reach the over. Next we have Seattle Seahawks versus Cincinnati Bengals. In the recent matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, Joe Burrow displayed his usual form by throwing 3 touchdowns in a 34-20 victory on the road. Ja'Marr Chase, who had expressed to the media his belief in consistently being open, caught all 3 touchdowns and achieved a season high of 192 receiving yards. With a Seattle Seahawks team that ranks 30th in the league, allowing 280 passing yards per game, Chase is likely to find himself open frequently once again. Compounding their defensive struggles, the Seahawks struggled to get off the field on 3rd down, ranking 2nd to last in the NFL. Even if T. Higgins is unable to play, the Bengals are poised to exploit the vulnerabilities of the youthful Seattle secondary. Despite entering the game with a 2-3 record, the Bengals feel more formidable than their record suggests, and they are ready to prove it at home against a Seahawks team that has to travel across the country. Despite coming off a bye, the challenge for West Coast teams adjusting to the Eastern time zone is ever present. The recommendation is to bet on the Bengals. The Bengals and Seahawks are off to a troubling start on the defensive side of the ball. Cincinnati has been gouged on the ground, giving up the 2nd most rushing yards in the NFL. Kenneth Walker will have a good game, and the Seahawks will score some points here. Although I expect the Bengals to win, this will be a shootout. Joe Burrow looks back to normal, and the Seahawks cannot get off the field on 3rd down. Seattle has been stingy on the ground, but the Bengals will not utilize Joe Mixon much in this one, throwing the majority of the game. He carried a whopping 25 times last week against Arizona, but only finished with 81 yards. Burrow dropped back 46 times, so his calf looks good, and expect the same output here. Take the over. Next we have San Francisco 49ers versus Cleveland Browns. The San Francisco 49ers asserted their claim as the top team in the NFL after a convincing victory over the Dallas Cowboys in last Sunday's primetime matchup. Although Brock Purdy had a stellar performance against the Dallas secondary, duplicating that success against one of the AFC's premier defenses seems unlikely. Cleveland currently boasts the league's stingiest defense in terms of yards allowed per game, and the 49ers face the additional challenge of traveling from the West Coast to confront a well-rested team coming off their bye week. In the event that Deshaun Watson is unavailable, P.J. Walker is expected to start, especially after Thompson Robinson struggled against the Baltimore Ravens 2 weeks ago. Anticipate a gritty, low-scoring affair dominated by both formidable defensive units. Even if Watson is sidelined, the defensive prowess of Cleveland is likely to shine, particularly following their surrender of 28 points to the Ravens before the bye. Notably, the 49ers have lost 5 of their last 7 encounters with the Browns. It's recommended to favor Cleveland to cover the spread in this matchup. The Browns and 49ers have been 2 of the stingiest defenses in the NFL through the early portion of the year. Cleveland has the best third-down defense and is allowing the fewest passing yards per game. San Francisco is allowing the fewest points per game while giving up a measly 64.2 rushing yards per contest. I expect an ugly game with both clubs struggling to effectively move the ball. Christian McCaffrey had 19 carries and a touchdown but only had 51 yards last week. Expect him to get a similar amount of carries, but it will be tough to gain footing against Cleveland. The total number has gone under in 6 of Cleveland's last 7 games facing NFC clubs. Take the under. Next we have New Orleans Saints versus Houston Texans. I anticipate that Houston will experience offensive success in this matchup. New Orleans is currently in the midst of a stretch featuring 4 consecutive games against non-conference opponents. In such instances, defenses can sometimes become complacent, lacking the same familiarity found in matchups against division or conference rivals. On the flip side, this season, NFL teams playing in their second consecutive road game have a record of 7-10 against the spread (ATS), with only 3 instances where the team covered in both games during the stretch. The Saints aspire to become the 4th team to achieve this, but despite their formidable defense, trusting their offense to perform well in a situation that has been challenging for the entire league raises doubts. This hesitation makes it less appealing to lay points on the road with the Saints, especially after they scored 30 points as a team for the first time since last October. Houston has demonstrated consistency in putting up at least 20 points in both of their home games so far. If not for settling for numerous field goals last week and ending up with 19 points, it would have marked 4 consecutive games with at least 20 points for C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Over the past calendar year, the Saints have struggled to surpass a point total of 20, making the situation favor Houston. In my view, the Texans have a good chance of winning this game outright, and they may not even need the points. While having faith in the Saints' offense to score remains challenging, trusting Houston to reach approximately 20 points is a more plausible expectation. Consequently, I lean towards betting on the over for the total points scored in the game. Although this decision comes with some hesitation, given that the total has already risen from its opening mark of 40.5, and wagering on a less favorable number is not ideal, I believe that if Houston attains the projected 20 points and still falls short, the over bet is likely to be successful. It's essential to acknowledge that all streaks eventually conclude. The early week increase in the total, despite the trend of recreational bettors favoring unders in Saints games, suggests a contrary perspective from more serious and non-recreational bettors who are less inclined to blindly follow streaks. Moreover, every streak reaches its conclusion, and examining the points scored by each of New Orleans' opponents in recent weeks, 15, 17, 18, 26, before the Patriots' offensive performance last week, raises questions about the perceived strength of the Saints' defense. In my estimation, Houston is likely to finish with a score in the 20s. For the Saints to demonstrate their merit as road favorites in this situation, they will need to find a way to reach 20-plus points as well. Therefore, I recommend taking the over. Thank you for tuning into this video. Kindly consider subscribing to our channel and activating notifications to stay updated on all our future content. For exclusive access to our premium picks, feel free to explore our Patreon page. The link to our Patreon page is available in both the video description and the comments section below. Your support is greatly appreciated.